I bet more and more of you are using Microsoft Entra and extending that into SaaS applications for the predominance of business. And have you ever thought about how that enables us to more and more move in the ecosystem of the licenses that people are already buying? And maybe you just haven't taken the time to keep yourself up to date with what kind of cool features there are. This is the beginning of a neat series where we're going to dig into this with Sly Gittens with Microsoft, who's an amazing content creator, to kind of bring some of that to you. And let's get into it right now. Join us.
The main thing is, you got to understand the architecture.
Give me the ball.
What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the game. We are live at Pax8's new global headquarters here in Denver. I think we call this a podcast studio, but it's way more than that. I mean, look at these lights and this set. This is great.
This is probably the nicest studio I've been in
Probably.
this year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, wait till you see the new big studio. It's almost done. We're going to do some cool stuff in there. But yeah, this is exciting. I think we're the first ones to use this room, so that's cool. We got a really great show, and like Matt said, part of a new series with Sly from Microsoft, really kind of digging into different security concepts. But before we get there, Security Boot Camp next week. There are less than 10 spots left. It's in Atlanta. You know, if you're driving distance to Atlanta, get yourself a ticket. Come on by. It's going to be a really fun show. We just spent the last couple of days building and getting ready for it. We'd love to have you there with us. And then, like, we're kind of winding down for the year, so there's not a lot else happening. So, you know, I got plenty of events to pitch for you next year, but come to Security Boot Camp because I think that's it for the year. With that in mind, let's, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We can't do that in this episode, but you can. So you should do that and definitely follow us for these episodes because I think that context is huge. Let's jump right into the show.
Welcome, man. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody, Sly, and let us know who you are and what you do for a living.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. My name is Sly Gittens. I'm a global solution area architect at Microsoft. I've been working in the channel for over 10 years now and have about, I say 14 years of experience within enterprise technology, but I've been building computers since I was 8 years old. So thanks for having me today.
Yeah, man. And one of the things we want to talk about, like I opened the show with, is it's almost all Microsoft centric, at least for most small businesses or startup companies that are moving down this world. They have an identity from Entra ID, which means that the more
Hold on.
Okay, go.
Sly. Entra or Entra?
Oh, yeah, we got to know.
We got
Entra, of course, man. It's Entra ID.
2 for 2.
Meryl gets another point.
Just saying.
Why do you keep doing that? You just want to just rub it in?
I just got to drive it home.
No, I appreciate you, man. I don't think it's changing anything. All right, continue. So what I was saying is it's more and more Entra centric and then extensible into SaaS. Why don't we dig into some of the key features in Business Premium and some of the additional things that you wanted to talk about today, Sly?
Oh, yeah, that's great. So, first of all, I wanted to start today start organizations. I'm seeing every organization talk about security and compliance, right? You start off with identity because identity is pretty much everywhere, right? We use it on every website, whether we know it or not, our identity follow us, right? So, especially after COVID, hybrid work is just part of life now. We're seeing new data regulations popping up every day. We're seeing new types of threats happening every single day. And the question is, how do we secure that as a SMB when you don't have the unlimited war chest for budget, when you don't have all of the necessary resources in-house, like talent? How do you do that, right? How do our MSPs do that? How do they stay up to date? And this is where something that you know and love already, the Business Premium, got even better now with some add-ons. There's the Microsoft Defender Suite and the Microsoft Purview Suite. So some things I want to talk about is how we're going to bring those big changes to organizations.
Yeah, Dom started to say that was a couple years in the making, right? For taking Business Premium up to these two new suites that come along, the Defender and Purview suites. I know we've been talking about that with Microsoft for almost a year and a half, 2
Yeah,
years.
2 years, yeah.
So I'm super happy about these bundles, and that's really what we want to dig into today. Continue, Sly.
Yeah, and that's one thing we pride on at Microsoft is partnerships. And you guys at Pax8 has been a strong advocate. Like, hey, we need these not yesterday, we need these now, right? So I'm glad
Yep.
that today is that day where we have those, where we can use it, right? And why are these things happening, right? It's just getting harder to stay secure right now, right? Especially with Gen AI coming in now, because now attackers can create ransomware quicker from code, from actually using real words and jargon. They can mirror people the way they talk now, right? So now we're seeing more sophisticated phishings, where before you could tell by the way it was written, but now with AI generated content, it mimics, the trusted brands. Like the other day, it took me like 3 or 4 minutes. Like, should I click this? This looks real, right? Let me pause,
Yeah.
right, and think about it. And I had some experience doing that. And I know each of you probably could tell about stories too of, stuff slipping through that would have never got through a year ago, maybe
Well,
a few months ago, right? So
Gen AI, in my opinion, has done a couple things. It has reduced the barrier to entry for targeted phishing, right? For
Yep.
spear phishing and for targeted phishing. And I actually did a simulation to talk about this where I built an innate inflow and used agents from various different GPT and open generative models to research a person, find out what kind of things they like, start making what kind of things would be something they'd be enticed to do, and then all the way to making a Go Fish campaign with the APIs of Go Fish, right? So it's not all that hard to your point, Sly, of like make it better, but not just better, but better at scale with a lower barrier to entry, right? I don't have to
Yep.
be perfect in English. I just need to be able to get a sentiment across and ask something to write something in English. Additional to that, you have GPT XXX, Fraud GPT, tons of these GPT models that have been taken and sold by threat actors with their guardrails removed. So while I don't really ascribe much to the ransomware aspect of this playing out, I believe the phishing that leads to ransomware enablement has been extremely high. And then the other aspect is data exfiltration. One of the challenges I think about a successful ransom event or for exfiltration is what's the crown jewels? No pun intended on the crown jewel heist recently, but yeah, like what are the crown jewels and what are we after? And so I think you've highlighted well, Sly, that things are getting easier and better targeted, lower barriers to entry, and better data quality and exfiltration that could be done all with AI and LLMs that make my job faster as a threat actor. We focus so much on the ransomware side, but really it's all those other soft skill enablement capabilities, reduction of barrier to entry that I think I'm scared of the
And
most.
And another thing we're seeing too is
personalized sort of messaging where I'm doing, OSINT is actually not hard.
Right.
People suck at OPSEC, but OSINT at scale and trying to build a bigger picture is time consuming, and AI has enabled, if I want to target you, I study your LinkedIn, but if you work with Sly, I also study Sly's LinkedIn, and I learn things like, you're doing open enrollment, there's my door, or whatever.
Right.
So we're seeing really smart, targeted to your environment type phishing. It's interesting.
Yeah, and another thing that we're seeing that is just simple oversharing, right? Permissions, not labeling things sensitive. Using AI, using AI internally and just, not having the right things secured, right? Like, should I be looking at this? When people leave an organization, so they still have it, right? That movers, joiners effect there, right? So that's what I'm seeing now. So not only are we seeing bad actors, you're also just seeing now just more chances of data being indirectly leaked, right? And that's just as bad as being leaked, being spoofed, right? So that's some things we're seeing here. So let's go in. We talked about this just now. I think y'all did a great job right now. Phishing attacks, 67% are using AI now, right? We just talking about it's making it super easy. Like I saw the other day, someone sent me a message asking me to sell their product, and they wanted me to get commission on it because they know I have a YouTube channel doing it. It was written pretty convincingly. I had to do my research, realized it was a spoofing attack, but it took me a while to stop and pause to look at it, where before it had been easy to detect. Something that most of us who are engineers or architects or just been in the security game, we know MFA is just part of life. A lot of people still not using it. I even had a company I went into. She's like, why do I need to have MFA? 100%.
So. Well, and I'll give you a different example for like the MSP audience. Did you ever get those emails that are like from the University of whatever, and we need our hardware supplier fell apart, we need 4,000 ThinkPads, and it's obviously a bunk deal. Although I've seen people fall for it.
I have
anyways. the like think about targeting that using AI to better understand your target and be like, oh, I need 3 laptops.
That's
I
right.
need to, right, and being more realistic, right, with your threat.
But on this MFA thing, 41% of users signing in with MFA.
It's gross.
I just want to believe that's a bad stat. I know it's not, but I want to believe it's a bad stat. Like I don't know, y'all in the audience right now that are watching. Like, does this just trigger you a bit? I mean, or is this really just a sign of where we are today? All right.
I was at Beyond, and I said it was the session we did on Origin, and I said, I've been presenting the same slide for 5 years now with like new colors, and that stat has always been in it. It evolved. I think when Cyber Signals first came out from Microsoft, it was
29.
29 was 29. Yeah. And we've only gone up to 41. It's been 2 or 3 years.
This just breaks my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this last stat, right, Sly, you speak towards days to identify and contain incidents involving stolen credentials. I think there's a lot that plays into this. I think we see the time to exfiltration and ransomware dropping over time in the stats. But at the same time, I think identity compromises go undiagnosed for a very long time. My friend Britton White goes and is on all the telegrams and buys, redline malware data, and he identifies and reaches out to these people. And sometimes it's 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and they still have a compromised account that 1 or 2 or 3 individual threat actors have potentially signed in to that account using those credentials. Anyways, just side tangent, but the stats check out.
Yeah, it's definitely relevant, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of orphan accounts, like you're saying, that get that's never were turned off, right? So they don't even know this is even a problem, right? So you see like 8 to 10 months and they still having it. And of course, this is generalizing it because you got people who get it faster. But this is all the reason why SMB had to get some of the same features as the enterprises, because it needs to change now. And the same thing I'm seeing here, like you might say, Sly, why do you have this on here? It's just because we're first dealing with different types of data, users, and objectives. And now data lives everywhere, from our cell phones, devices, IoT devices, AI models, right? How do you protect that? How do you do that quickly? How you do that holistically? That's something that you need to focus on, right? And then also is, AI transformation. We talked about is continually bringing in those data risks in there, right? Just because, again, depends on the access to large data sets, right? Where is it being governed on? What type are they using? Just publicly, use Gen AI tools, right? Like Chat GPT, right? How are you supervising that?
Problem. I think, Sly, this is a deeper problem. All right, MSPs that are out there watching right now, I think there's 15 of y'all on here right now, maybe 20. For those that are watching right now, I want you to ask yourself, have you ever been in a situation with your client where they expected and you expected that you would help them map their data, plan where their data is, understand their data's meaningfulness to their business, understand the implications from risk, or is data really a newish topic to most MSPs by proxy of AI, by proxy of loss, by proxy of incidents? My point is that protecting data in the era of AI, so you come from a bit of that enterprise background too, where they've been talking about data privacy, data security, data understanding, data tagging, data segmentation. But in the MSP space, at least maybe I'm telling myself that I'm a bad MSP. We didn't do that. We had an S drive. We might have asked them to accept it into an accounting drive and a leadership drive, but we didn't get in and tag their data, understand their data, plan on their data. We weren't doing DLP across the board. We didn't have stringent rules for that in place.
Well,
what about you?
Know what data they had? Like we were able to sort of force a couple of data conversations when compliance requirements,
or an acquisition, or
something like that, some sort of due diligence. But it's really hard to get them to even understand why that matters. Like, no. Susie in accounting uses this, and that's who, right? And
that's the base of it.
And that's it. There's no thought to roles or functions, and it's a real problem.
But now you're exposing it to AI and LLMs and people with different job roles with access beyond what they should. And Sly, I just wanted to hit home on that point of everybody wanted to just flip the switch on AI, but they had not been dealing with access rights. They had getting shared to everyone and just sent the link over to Billy. It didn't mean it wasn't shared with everybody at that point, right? And so a lot of cleanup that had to be done and is still being done today by a lot of MSPs with their client base.
And also, I'll just say it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to do these things, right? And then in an SMB or an MSP where you have competing priorities, which ones are gonna surface more, right? The immediate ones where you could kick the can down the road for
Yep.
data, privacy and sensitivity. That's what organizations just did naturally. And now you can't, because like you said, they want AI, but they're like, well, it's my data. First of all, is it stored the correct way? Like, do we have it in
Yep.
personal files? Do we have it in OneDrive? Do we have it in,
Yeah.
data stores outside of there, right? Like, where is it even living? Is it, will it be garbage in, garbage out? And are those secure? Should they have access to it? So now the conversation has shifted to, kicking it down the can is why don't we have this? Because our users suspect this.
Yeah.
And if we don't have it, they're gonna go outside of it, right? So that's kind of where
Well,
you
there's another.
see, right? And again, we've been talking about this already, and I love it, the organic conversation we're having, because we're talking about this, right? Duplication of copies of data, inconsistent data classification, redundant
Or
alerts.
not.
All these things are why it's so needed to have a data protection solution now, right? And again, like we talked about with AI, it just makes these security outcomes worse or more prevalent because they were there, right? So now is just kind of the time to do that.
Well, and it's more than security, right?
Yeah.
Going back to like duplicate copies of data.
Mhm.
How many times have we run into the S drive got lifted to SharePoint
Yeah.
as is?
Yeah.
And if you're litigating and you're in discovery, there's this strategy where you get every piece of paper your company has ever produced and you give it away as discovery, and you have hundreds of thousands or millions of pages of data that the other counsel has to search through. And the idea is you bleed them dry, right? They run out of legal fees, and it takes forever. But you're doing the same thing to AI if your data isn't organized. If I put Copilot on a huge mess, it cannot sort through that huge mess and figure out what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But if I have it sorted into this is finance, this is operations, this is whatever R&D, now even as just a functional tool,
Yeah.
AI can perform better.
It's contextually relevant, right?
Right,
In
right.
that situation.
And I love how you did that, right? Again, if you don't have those buckets or containers, it makes it hard to source, right? So this is why we created a part of it, the Defender Suite. What are you getting in there, right? So you get an intra ID plan too, right? So I'm gonna talk about three of them because there's a lot of things we could talk about, and we're gonna go deeper in that in the future.
And we will
But what's
in
three
this
things
series.
that get me? I'll go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just saying we will in this series for sure.
Yeah, in
So
this
we're
series,
just touching on them.
in this series, we're gonna kind of cover all of that. So today we're gonna talk about a few things. The first thing I like is automation, because a lot of MSPs I talk about, especially the 1, 2, even 10-person shop, they can't do everything by themselves. So with Plan 2, that's where it helps out with Intra is we can automate risky users, device users. We can tie that into a conditional access statement. So now if I see, well, Sly's account is acting kind of strange, let's shut it off. Let's go talk to Sly first, right? And it will do that on its own, right? Which that's helpful at times where we can cut it off before that attacker gains ground. Another one that I think is, is a CASB solution. Now you have it in there. That's Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Again, those unsanctioned applications. Should I be putting data into my Google Drive? Should I be putting data into ChatGPT or another application? We can use that a part of this SKU as well, right? Then also again for the Defender for Office, the email security. Now you can even do phishing campaigns built in there, right? Where you can start trying to spoof your team to see what they fall to, so then you can give them additional training, so you can make sure that they're prepared for the new types of security, right? And there's a lot of other things we can dive in. I've been talking about the endpoint protection, the device hardening that we can talk about. So it gets really cool. And the great thing is, like, you have an E5 at a way cheaper cost for the SMB, right?
Yeah.
All those features are now inside these two SKUs for you. So I want to show something side by side. You might say, Sly, Pax8 tells me Business Premium is the hero SKU. It is. Well, we wanted to make it even better to add on. Again, you went from
Yep.
P1, this conditional access, now to P2, that risk-based conditional access, right? Also, you got governance and lifecycle, so that orphan accounts, those accounts are not being used, you can turn off those permissions, right? You can do just-in-time permissions to make sure people only have access to what they need. You also get that CASB also for those shadow applications in IT. You're getting so much more. So adding it together now, it makes it better for you going forward. You might be saying, Sly, how much does this cost? Because you keep telling me sound too good to be true. So for me, I like to showcase the value up front. Before, if you had to build this all together, it'd be $28 of value, right? Now for the SKU for Defender is only $10, right? So to me, that's 65% cost reduction, but also think about it from time. If you had another solution you had to deal with, or if you had multiple different SKUs, keeping that together correctly and staying within the compliance of Microsoft, right? A little bit harder. Now it's easier because now it's one SKU, right? So that's one thing I want to talk about there. And let me pause there. Dom,
Yeah.
did you have anything you want to add on there?
Yeah, I think if we look at the products right on the left hand side, MDE, that's a EDR product.
Yep.
Right. Defender for Office, that is your traditional. I always compare it to email security, but it's
Right.
so much more than that. It's across the suite. Defender for Identity unlocks that sort of ITDR type service. Defender for Cloud Apps is CASB, and CASB outside of a native ecosystem is hard to implement.
Yep.
But also more expensive than what you're seeing here. So I think the value of this bundle is massive. Thinking about $1 to $3 for EDR, $1 to $3 for email, and the list goes
And
on.
the integration,
And the
efficacy of that
right,
integration.
Right. Well, and then you look at like a Nerdio or CIPP or one of these management tools that kind of brings it a layer up and lets you manage it as an MSP.
Scale down. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
That's massive.
The other thing I want to speak to that you said, Sly, was that automation being brought in with P2.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Imagine you have a P1 and you're stacking on an ITDR from somebody as a third-party vendor. When they find something anomalous, their behavior is basically one way. It's going to be to lock out the user or to completely stop the transaction, rotate tokens, all the things. But what if you have a risky user flow that when I become a risky user because of some of that telemetry, I now have a CA policy that forces me to just simply use a higher factor of authentication. For that user experience, I can both start a case over here and work through that deeper conversation and forensics while also walking them through escalating that the real user is the real user by escalatory means. And that's what I mean by this is when you're getting into the P2, you can start crafting experiences and managing a faster mean time to detection and response, MTTD and MTTR, of how fast did I get this locked down? Because now I'm not waiting on some decision for this heavy-handed thing. I can start saying, no, that was a bad sign-in. Let's escalate the levels of CA for everything and reissue, right? Those kind of things are just super awesome when it comes to a normalized user experience. So when you say make it even better, it's not just making it more efficacious or more usable, but it also makes a better end client experience, in my opinion, the more integrated it is.
Well, it's invisible. Like there's this panic of like, oh, my account's off. Your first question is, am I fired? Right?
Fair. I hadn't even thought about that part.
But your next question is like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I'm not fired. That's not how this works.
Yeah, yeah.
You kind of get deeper into this conversation. Users don't know. They're going to see like, hey, you got to use your security key, bro. Like,
and then they just do it. They don't know that you started a case on the back end and investigating whether there's something dangerous, right? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Continue, Sly.
No, this is great. This is the dialogue I like to kind of put it together. This slide says the same thing, but it's showing the value for each individual SKU, what we was talking about before. We don't got to go too much deep in there. You're going to have the slides after this
We'll
as
dig
well.
into those.
And we can dive into those later in the series, right? So the next one is Purview, right? So Purview, you're going to get your DLP, you're going to get your e-discovery, you're going to get your insider risk. And why is that helpful? Because you didn't get that in Business Premium, right? You just didn't have any type of way to do some of those labeling, right? So now if you put in Copilot, you could do sensitivity labeling. You could do DLP. I'll give you an example. I know I had a customer who one of their top, marketing people was using ChatGPT, but they was using proprietary information. They didn't realize they was using ChatGPT. So when we turned it on, we were like, hold on, we stopped them. Like, you can't be putting that inside of there. They had to have a long conversation. He was like, well, I'm producing more faster. I'm like, well, you're giving away all the trade secrets, man, for free.
Yeah.
So this is something that we need more than ever.
So let's replace ChatGPT with almost any other SaaS application. Oh, I didn't know marketing and spun up Marketopia. I didn't know this. And so one of the things that I think we have not adjusted to, and I'll put CIS into this, CIS 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, have an asset inventory, right? I say what's an approved software for your company. We do that for an installed application already fairly poorly. I would argue we do that for third-party applications in SaaS near zero as MSPs today of what we allow. And I think this is that type of license where and I really am excited about demonstrating some of the capabilities of Purview and also the extensibility of the CASB solution, of how that helps you start to address the defensibility and defendability of your organizations around SaaS consumption. And having that built natively in, I think most of the loss that you're going to see, and we're simulating in our boot camp, and will be through cloud application compromise by identity compromise,
Right.
and additionally, egress of data. You and I have been working on abusing some of the policies that we live under
Right.
to try to
Right.
get data to our boot camp environment,
Right.
having to use
Right.
some pretty sketchy
Right.
sites.
Right.
Those CASB solutions help you start somewhat default denying a lot of that and allowing
Yeah.
things, at least to some extent, on some of
Well,
those
and
services.
DLP is about more than sort of preventing the leak of internal data. We actually, it was Microsoft, actually. We were communicating with Microsoft, and Exclaimer had this goofy URL format that looked exactly like a storage access key. And Microsoft was rejecting every email we sent them.
Yeah,
And it got me thinking, like, one, that's annoying. How do we fix this?
sure.
It's a bad day. But as you come out of that problem, Microsoft is not receiving secrets. They're saying you can't send us this secret. We're
Yeah.
not gonna accept that, and that's defensible. That's
Yep.
a reduction in liability
Yeah.
or exposed risk because you're not storing cloud secrets that for some reason I emailed you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and even on another one, like at Microsoft, when I create a PowerPoint, it defaults to confidentiality, right? So
Yep.
I
Right.
can't share it by accident. I have to purposely say, this is public information. I need to share it with Pax8, right? So
Yep.
when you do
Secure by
confidential
default.
Weird.
by default, it makes it a lot easier. It's frustrating because it, sometimes slows down the natural speed of business. But what do you rather have? A little bit slower and less chance of leakage? And if it does leak, I get first, if they could tell us it wasn't nefarious, I get a message, hey, don't do that again, right? If you
Yeah.
still try to do it, then you're gonna have a conversation, right? But
Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
the good thing about this. But I know we're running low on time right now. So again, I like to put this, we like numbers, right? MSPs, how can we make margin on it? How are we gonna sell it? And again, look at the e-discovery order. That's an E5. You would have to upgrade to E5, get insider risk, get information protection, and that's $19, $10, that's 47% off. That's easy math. I can sell that to a company and they'll at least take that serious. But the better thing I want to talk about is, and again, we'll go dive deeper and later in the series on this, is looking at it together collectively.
Yeah,
Now
this is
you
a power
have the
slide.
endpoint, the automation. Now you have the identity. You got the intra. You got the E5 discovery, 47. But we were talking about that earlier, Matt, and you said there was an even hidden cost that's more than this $47 and the 68%. So can you talk about that really quickly?
Yeah, I was just kind of pointing towards, like, let's say I go solve this. All right, I need an endpoint protection for $1.50 to $4. I need to add, and they might do MDR, but only for that endpoint detection. And now I need to get something that can do ITDR that helps me solve that problem. But even then, it doesn't quite, for that second SKU, cover the fact that Defender for Office was one of the only things that in the very early stages could detect an AITM.
Yeah.
Because they saw both ends. Ask me how I know. I locked myself out with Defender for Business. Defender for Identity is bringing additional that. Cloud apps, now you get into a CASB. So even let's say you bought all of those things at that price parity and spent those dollars, you're still probably going to get less efficacy because they're not integrated. You have different systems that you'll have to bring together in some way operationally or tactically. So when you start getting to this point, the $15 for all of these put together in a SKU as a bundle, and then now you have money left over to spend with MDR providers that have one unified view of all of those capabilities. I think that's what excites me the most, is that once you get this very normalized, very graph-centric, very capable of automation and manipulation, and now third-party providers start adding services on top of that capability, you start getting high efficacy, better value, and you're now getting way more than you would have gotten for that same $15 all-in MDR bundle that still only barely does pieces of this.
Right.
I know I sound like a pitch in this, y'all, but I'd sit here and talk to y'all like this face to face. I think it's the value of the math plus the efficacy and quality of where this is going, combined with third-party resources of that now very normalized thing.
Well, there's another math problem here too, right? So business premium is, I don't know, $22.
Sure.
I don't know what the new team's equation, but let's call it $22.
Fair.
This is
Jared.
15, so you're $37. We always just tell people, like, if you need to get to this level, you got to buy E5, which is $65, $70,
Sure.
depending on if you get it with teams. So even in that, we're going from
we're
60,
37,
65
40
to
bucks.
37.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a massive price difference.
So again, I want to make it a little bit real. And I know when we're talking to people like ourselves who like to see it live, and we're gonna have that, later in the series. I just wanted to talk through it. And we kind of did it already, which I loved it already, right? Before is if you didn't have these tools and you only had business premium, it was manually locking these things, right? It was manually
Yep.
locking down these accounts,
Yep.
enforcing these policies manually one by one. Where now, if you have, intra ID P2, AI is on the back end doing that for you, right? You can configure what a risky looks like in your environment and what type of conditional access steps you want to do, like triggering that higher level of authentication, right?
Well, and
So
let's
this is happening for you.
let's slow
Oh,
down
go ahead.
for just a sec on the AI piece, because I think that can evoke fear. So we're saying AI does this, and that's true. But understand that Entropy 2 and risk-based conditional access is much older than Copilot or
Yeah.
GPT,
100%.
and
Correct.
it's really, AI is not new.
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget that. This is not sending it
Yeah.
to GPT-5 and being
Right.
like, is Matt doing a weird thing?
Yeah.
This is using heuristics from
Machine
billions
learning,
and
the
billions
things-
and billions of
yeah.
events.
Very normalized events.
Very normalized
right? Like
events,
the same
right.
sign-in log, same type, same different MFAs. The other thing that this paints that picture of is we now have a more complete picture end to end. We have
Yes.
endpoint telemetry that talks about what happened after it was detonated. We have the email where it came in from. We have the adversary in the middle server that was between those two for the AITM. Like we have all of those things that now all happen in one place to collect that.
I had
Right?
to zap in my personal tenant today, and it ran through here's why this email was originally delivered. But then when we looked at it again, we said, oh, this isn't good, right? So like those capabilities, being able to get that, and it knew that I opened that email on my laptop, but I didn't click the link.
That's right.
And it gave me all that diagnosis, and those things are really powerful.
Correct. And the good thing about it, it's saving you time, right? You can solve it
Yeah.
quicker. And those are things we're talking about. So I love how you talked about it. The next one I want to talk about what we talked about earlier, shadow IT.
Yeah.
Putting, information in third-party acts that not sanctioned. You get to do this now pretty easily. But now you can just do that within this suite. You have that covered, right? And the great thing about it is already integrated to your ecosystem. When you do block it, you can tie it into your Entra ID. You can tie it into your Defender. If you're using Sentinel, you can see it from there, and you can all see it within the Microsoft console. And I know, Dom, you wanted to add something on there as well.
I'd love to toss something on this one. The way we solve this today is one of a couple of methods. One method tends to look at the email box and go, did Dom sign up for any third-party applications under his thing, which probably covers X percent. Let's call it 10, 15%, because you could just as easily do it in your Gmail account where there's no purview in that space, but still on the same endpoint device and there's no protection. The second way attempts to, and there's more ways, y'all, so anybody wants to beat me up, reach out in the comments, we'll talk about it. The second way is to inject something at either the system or browser level that is inspecting disencrypted traffic and sites and domain names and things and collecting. And I'm not naming names of products, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And those methods are more efficacious where they are deployed and where they have the controls. So when you start getting into, that means you have to have great operational processes to get it deployed, make sure it's stable and functional and it's doing its job. And there's not another browser it can't manage. There's those things.
And it's layers. And I think we often miss that. So like screenshot control, really powerful. You can do this in Purview with labels. So I got a confidential email. No, you can't screenshot it. They've really improved this.
Deeply integrated to the OS.
Deeply, like third-party screenshots.
Yeah, not some agent running in a browser. But
you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this here thing out of my pocket.
Screenshot. That's right.
Bam, screenshot.
That's right.
So it's about layers and
that's
understanding.
Right.
And now you can watermark your Teams meetings to prevent that from being efficacious.
Been doing that. Funny story. Did that in Citrix for a 801.71 company early days to have that data. Said whose name it was.
It's
on
already
there,
leaked, but at least you know who did it.
At least you know who did it. But the other piece is with most of those solutions, you still have a challenge of taking action. Yeah. When you start getting into these, you're building in systemic rules and you're doing what Chris Krebs said, which is like try to make it easier for users to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong. And that's what I love about a CASB type solution. Even if you only got to 30 or 40% of its capabilities of your design or where you were going to go from restrictions, you've gained visibility, control capabilities, understanding, all of those type of things that really help with when I'm doing what software am I using. Maybe you ought to figure that out first. What are my users using? They're not going to tell you, but if I can see everything they've used and pick out the 6 or 7, vines that they go to every day and just get down to the real meaningful data. But CASB solutions being added in this, I think is probably the number one unexplored for most MSPs that should drive revenue and should absolutely drive reduction of their kind of commoditization, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that directly ties into what the third layer that I wanted to talk to, right? And the last one for today is purview, right? Sometimes you just get accidental oversharing, right? Where I can
Sure.
block it, right? You can, she collected the proprietary data from multiple companies using her elevated access. Then she tried to copy that into external drive, but DLP blocked it, right? And then,
Yep.
but she found a workaround. She was like, you know what? I'm going to update this to my cloud account, right? But since she had this act, it was flagged and she could stop it, right? And the cool thing is, if she would have tied that into the Defender for Cloud for Apps, we could have blocked it there too. So they can work together seamlessly, right? So using Purview with using, cloud apps, to me, that's something I wanted to point out is it works efficiently together, right? So those are some of the things that we could talk about, and we could go into insider risk management. Like how many MSPs
Yep.
have you had someone that you fired because they wasn't doing a good job? Then they try to burn the whole house down, right? You could see that. You could set up parameters or pre-built indicators to
Well,
catch
Remember
repeat
the old
offenders.
story? I think we may have been going to the same place.
I probably was.
We had a friend on the show.
Yep.
And we're not going to name names, but a staff member of his,
Not one. A lot.
You're right.
Of staff members
Many of his staff members have been offered large sums of money for credentials, and this person's a great person. They're a great
Yep.
leader, obviously, and their staff came to him. But would your staff, if I called someone on your MSP's team,
Yeah.
and said, "I'll give you $1 million if you let me to your RMM,"
Yeah.
are you going to get the call?
And this is a little Johnny foreshadowing, because if you're coming to our boot camp, this may be something we're actually talking about. There's a term out there called MICE. MICE stands for money, ideology, coercion, and ego.
Yep.
Those are the ways that and this was from the CIA, but these are the ways that as an intelligence operative, I can convert an asset. Well, in the same way, if you've made it harder and harder for me to do things with malware and remote access and phishing and all these things that make it so hard, and I still want to attack this company, hey, Sly, man, how you doing? Listen, I'll give you $1 million. All I need to do is do these 4 things for me, and I promise you're not going to get in trouble. By the way, we can step into coercion if we need to, but let's start with money. Right. I just genuinely think that's probably the next path is as threat actors start to realize how much power MSPs have, they will start getting insider threats, and we'll see that pivot. So we're talking about that in our boot camp. There may even be an insider threat, particularly in our boot camp. And the question one would have to ask themselves is, how do I find an insider threat? They won't necessarily be doing threatening things until they become a threat.
That's the idea.
That's the idea. So how do you find that insider threat? And how do you stop their access? And Purview is really where my brain goes to, at least the data centrism of that raw data that exists there. A lot of other layers that have to exist, but yeah.
First of all, great conversation. We could talk about this for another 30 minutes, but we don't have that, right? So I don't want to monopolize the time. It was an excellent conversation, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I can't wait to kind of come back and, show how each of these solutions work and show some real live examples. But Dom, take it away to close out the show today.
Sly, thanks so much for being here. This has been a great show. I'm really looking forward to doing this series with everyone. And as much as it may sound like a Microsoft commercial, it's really not, because I think we're trying to give you ways to really centralize and to expand your capabilities, but also to learn about new threat models that you're not thinking about. Yeah. And that's what we've unlocked. Matt and I and many of us at Pax8 worked together for years to get these capabilities added in a way that your customers can access them. We're really excited about it. So join us on this series. And we're doing this different than your average YouTuber, I think, because we are going to pepper in other episodes so you get different content.
Yep. What's next week?
With that in mind, Alex Spiegel is coming on, second time as a guest. We love Alex. So you'll see us not in this room, unfortunately.
No.
And next week, we have boot camp next week. How's that going?
I'm not sure.
I think we're back in 2 weeks.
We might figure that out. We're going to see.
We'll be here next week or the week after, same time, not the same place, unless you're you. Then join us in the same place. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. We'll see you then.